Hello and welcome to Discourse in Magic. This is episode 19 and we are here with our good friend Scott Hammell. Very excited to be talking to Scott. He's an exciting guy. I mean, he does stunts professionally, which sounds crazy because it is. And we thought he'd be the perfect guest for Niche Month because he sort of found the world of performance art and magic through a niche, and now he made it even more niche with his stunts and what he does with his stunt, which is motivational speaking.
Yeah, we are absolutely moved by what he does. He's able to find, lessons for himself inside of his stunts, and it is absolutely incredible. And he's able to express those messages to youth and at leadership conferences, and now working with some bigger organizations. And he's doing absolutely great stuff. So we are absolutely moved by everything that Scotty is doing, and his stunts are really crazy. I think he was tied up in a straitjacket while juggling fire or juggling guns that were shooting as he was inside of a big can full of water hanging from a hot air.
I don't think
is that not right?
I don't think that the guns would have shot fire in water in the air. I don't think he did.
I see. Also, how do you juggle in a street?
Yeah, he might have done these things. I just don't know that he did them all at the same time.
Not together. Yeah, that wouldn't make sense anyways. Well, I have good news. I'm pretty sure that he talks about it.
Does he?
I think he does. So if you stay tuned for the episode that's about to come, you will hear all about Scott Hammell and all of the incredible stunts that he's done and how he leverages them to find something to talk about. And one of the things that we thought was really exciting is somebody finally answering the question of how to try this at home, which obviously he's not condoning trying it at home, but we think that if there's any audience that's going to be trying stunts at home, it's likely to be you guys.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to get into the stunt world, we ask him to get a little bit into the details of how to do that. And other than that, we get to hear all about his incredible stunts and how he has really found his niche. So without further ado, here it is, episode 19 of Discourse in Magic.
Hello and welcome to Discourse in Magic. We are very excited to be recording with our good friend Scott Hammell. My name is Tyler Williams. I'm with my partner Jonah Babin. And today we're going to be talking about stunts. But before we get into that, let's start with the, the classic intro of how did you get into magic? How did you get into performing?
I actually, probably a little bit different than some of the guys you talked to. I started through juggling. And so when I was 12, I bought a book at a school book fair and came with 3 juggling balls, follow the instructions, teach yourself how to juggle. And I was at an audition to get into the Waterloo Busker Carnival and met another juggler who was also a magician. And so then he took me under his wing more to get me. He took me when I was 12 to the University of Waterloo Juggling Club. And but then I started hanging out with him and he started showing me tricks. And then I was like, oh man, I've got to learn magic, and it just kind of morphed into that. I found that there was a nice market for kind of a variety show, some juggling, some magic, some escape stuff, instead of purely juggling show, purely magic show, purely escape show. But then sometimes clients would want one specific thing, and by that point I had enough repertoire material that I could pull it off. So yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Is that sort of how you transitioned into doing these bigger sort of spectacular stunts and putting them in? Was it sort of just this the idea of having a variety of things?
Sure, yeah, that also for me kind of, studying Harry Houdini, I'd look at the videos and pictures and read the descriptions and stuff and think it was pretty badass. But when I was in high school, I was really involved in student leadership stuff and would go around to these big conferences and hear these great speakers, and I had a really amazing teacher that was like, Scott, you should just add a message to what you're already doing. The magic would be the hook. Use the magic as a vehicle to deliver your message. But I didn't have anything to talk about. Some of the speakers that I'd hear were, amputees, and they would talk about their struggles with that, or, problems with drugs. And so I didn't have any of that stuff. So I figured, well, why not try to do something big, and it would give me something to talk about. So my first stunt was literally designed to give me something to talk about for my motivational speaking.
And what was that? Wow.
That was hanging upside down from a hot air balloon, and I was locked in a straitjacket and chains.
Wow. How high did you go?
Big, eh?
We were 7,200 feet.
Wow.
So it was high. It was a world record for the highest suspension straitjacket escape. The goal was 10,000 feet, but we were flying into a storm, so the storm cloud ceiling was we went up as high as we could go.
Right.
And if we went through the clouds, in a hot air balloon you can't really control where you're flying, so it would have been a nightmare for the ground crew to kind of follow us and make sure that we were safe. And actually it took us a really long time to land because of how choppy the winds got by the end. So we basically went up as high as we could, did the escape, and then it was just...
And you were upside down the whole time?
No, that was a really complicated aspect of it, because I was locked in the jacket and chains. It took about 45 minutes to get to altitude. I was kind of lifted and sat on the edge of the basket, and then they basically pushed me out, and using a 3/4 inch piece of rope through my armpits essentially lowered me. And then once the slack ran out on my feet, I just slowly kind of inverted. And then did the escape. They sent down a rope that kind of clipped onto my belt, and then it was like a 4-way pulley system to get me back up and in.
So far we've spoken to 2 other magicians who have been brought into certain aspects of magic because either the opportunity called for it, or they just sort of signed themselves up for something before they were able to do it. So someone like Chris Westfall signed himself up to do an illusion show before he had illusions, and then he said he had to figure out illusions. Steve Brundage is doing something similar with a guest appearance. That's sort of how it is always with stunts, right? Like, it's sort of one shot go. You have to bet on something you've never done. You know, it's not like magic, you're well rehearsed before you go out there. In stunts, I mean, you can rehearse so many aspects of it, but there is a lot that really is only that time.
Sure.
Incredibly unique.
Yeah, totally. And I felt that the strongest, the heaviest with the last stunt that I did, which was the bullet catch. I mean, it's not something you can really audience test, because for me, I mean, I came up with a method that I was pretty secure and safe with, but it's not something I'm adding to my repertoire because the numbers catch up with guys. And that's, if you look at the statistics of the guys that have had accidents doing it, not just with the deaths, but there have been a lot of bullet catch accidents. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's when they either get complacent or they don't service their weapons properly and clean them properly, and you know, it's adding that. So yeah, I mean, I did technically I got shot, I guess, 4 times. Once we shot a dummy in the studio. My bullet catch was a little different than the typical catch it in the mouth or the hand. I wore armor-plated steel around my chest and got shot. My intention was to catch the ricochet. So we shot a dummy in this warehouse just to see how far the ricochet would go. Then I got hit once with no trying to catch, tried to catch, missed, and then we had to go to the performance. And you know, the live performance, we did one version before the audience came into the theater just to capture some angles for a documentary before that we knew we couldn't get in the live performance, and then did the live performance, and it worked out. But I mean, I thought about doing it in my show and pitching, like, you know, a theater show, because no one in Canada does a bullet catch on a regular basis, especially. Right. So I think that you could get a market there, but you don't want to have the numbers catch up with you, and so you can't really audience test it.
You know what? That's such a you know, positive on the other end of it. Like, how many videos are online of magicians doing that? Which cup is it?
Yeah, the spike
with the knife underneath.
Yeah, every summer I tour to a specific camp, and they all tell me this story about a magician who was at their school, who did it, got the knife in his hand. He had someone holding his wrist. It didn't go through her hand. It only went through his. But before it, he said to her, if this goes wrong, it's your fault. Oh. And of course, the thing went through his hand, blood everywhere. Total, like, absolute absolute mess.
I know so many people that have screwed that trick up, and
like our hands are like our
It's everything.
our
totally
tools, right? So,
I actually had a severe burn on my hand from a stunt that went wrong a few years ago, and know what it's like to really mangle your hand and your bread and butter winner. You know, like it's.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So that stunt was a stunt I call the Roman Cascade, and essentially it was juggling live explosives. The explosives I chose to juggle were Roman candle fireworks, and so during I was trying it in a field downtown Toronto. It's going well. I'm in all cotton clothes, full face visor, helmet, safety gloves, and one of the fireballs shot out, hit me right in the palm. And I didn't realize that the safety gloves that I was wearing contained a synthetic material. And synthetics melt, and it's phosphorus magnesium coming out the end, so it's 1200 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
And it's designed to shoot 30 to 50 feet in the sky, so at point blank range, that's got a lot of burn left in it. So melted a hole in the glove, went inside, and got stuck between my palm and the leather inside of the glove. And it just burned and melted the glove to my palm, and burned and burned and burned and burned, dropped the Roman candles on the ground, ripped off the glove, and my palm went with it, essentially. So severe second degree burns, almost third degree, almost needed skin grafting, and yeah, it was gnarly. And
how long was the recovery?
I had a show 6 days later, and I had to juggle in that show and do a straitjacket escape, it was rough because I was in a kind of a cast almost to basically keep my palm stretched. And for the show, I had to take the cast off, and so it was the first time in a while that it was really like raw, and so anything that would hit it was incredibly sensitive, and so the juggling hurt like crazy. I was trying to just catch it in my fingertips, but the top of my index finger was burned as well, so that was really raw. But then in the straitjacket, it's just inside the jacket rubbing back and forth, so that was really painful. But it started getting good enough that I felt like I could really do good shows at about 30 to 45 days, and then it was, it looked weird for probably about 2 to 3 months, and was hot cold sensitive for 2 years probably.
Wow.
So
and you did try again, right? And do it without burning yourself.
Yeah, well, yeah, I did. We did so I eventually went online, did a bunch of research, got my hands on 3 asbestos suits. So if you've ever seen an airplane on fire and the guys in the silver suits running to put it out, I bought 3 of those, one for me, one for the director, one for the camera operator, because we were shooting it on a really expensive camera, so every different angle needed a different lens. So sometimes the camera crew would be like, 3.5 feet in front of me, and they're going to be getting nailed with these things as well. So I wanted to make sure that they were safe. Because, that was the thing. When I was in the hospital, I was like, I'm so glad that I got burned, because I had 2 guys that were right there with me that were...
Could happen just as easily.
Yeah, could have hit them just as easily, and they didn't... They signed up to be there, but it's not their fault. It's different. So I'm so glad. But yeah, we had to do about 30 takes to get the video that we wanted. So by the end, the visor on my helmet was all smashed. Like there were cracks in it, burn holes in the suit. Wow. So it was, I've still got the suits. It's crazy to see how much wear and tear those... You see guys on YouTube all the time having Roman candle fights, and most of them seem to come out fairly unscathed, but those suits that are designed to take that still took a beating.
Still took a real...
Yeah, so not a good idea though. If any listeners are like, I'm gonna have a Roman candle fight, a buddy of mine was in a Roman candle fight with one of his friends. The fireball shot out, didn't even hit him, but melted the whole sleeve to his arm. 3rd degree burns, was in the hospital for 3 months, needed skin grafting. It was bad.
See, so that echoes my personal view on stunts, which is like safety first.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't personally do stunts. I could fathom doing something that appeared to be a stunt, but there was a method, there was a secret method that
magic trick with something on the line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A magic trick with something on the line, but really, for the most part, like, I try to steer away from it because, like, I don't know how I feel about people, like, cheering. I worry that people are going to be cheering for my, like, failure a little bit, you know, like
Yeah, and that's an interesting point as well, and that's something that I've explored with doing the live stunts, like the milk can escape, the bullet catch, as examples, not the ones that I film for video. One of the main things that you want to do is design it in such a way that your performance before it really gets the audience on your side and to care for you. So they're cheering with you and for you. They're not cheering for your demise, which I think a lot of performers that I've seen that do the live dangerous stunts either nail that, they get it so right that you are worried about them, or they're just such dicks, and it's like, are they doing that on purpose so that people are cheering against them, or is that just who they are and they're hotheads?
comes off as really challenging.
Yeah, and it's more jackassy than it is performance art.
Right. Even like, these aren't really in the same stream of stunts, but when you think of like the big names in stunts, you think of like Evel Knievel and stuff like that. They like have this almost superhero-esque sort of like love and sort of what am I trying to say? Cult following behind them, right?
Yep.
Which is what you sort of want to get sort of right in the beginning of your show.
Yep.
So what are your sort of tips for how to win your audience over and make them be on your side for the rest of your performance, whether you're doing stunts or not?
I would say a large part of it is honesty. Being honest with your audience about what you're actually nervous about, what has gone wrong in the past, why they should be worried for you, and just humanizing it. Like, humanize the stunt, you know, break it down. Like, I'm just an entertainer here for you, and you know,
I'm just hurting myself right now, so you can get some enjoyment.
Absolutely. And like,
I know there's a moment in your like Straitjacket Escape where you talk about like that you're about to pop out your shoulder, you know, and you like warn everyone. You're like, this is what's about to happen. Like, this is sort of how I get to the next part.
Yeah.
Sort of like a mandatory thing. Here we go. And there it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that happened, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's a legitimate thing, and the audience can really sense it. I mean, I've had people pass out, I've had people puke, and it's not designed to do that. That's just, it happens sometimes because people are grossed out by that stuff, and they should know that, you know, the cost of watching the guy on stage doing that thing that makes you sit on the edge of your seat, there is an element to it that's real and that demands that performer puts themselves in a certain element of risk, and that they don't have to endure the consequences of that the same way the performer does. So, you know, after the show's done, I'm hauling my gear out to the car. That's the worst part. That's the human part, because my shoulders have, you know, just been dislocated, and now I've got to hold 4 cases of gear, take it to my car. That sucks. But they get to like, oh man, that was intense. All right, you guys want to go grab a beer? Yeah. And then they just get to leave. So
you get a wheelie.
How do you feel about the people who do pass out or throw up or whatever it is? Like, that sort of brings up, I don't know if you do, I haven't seen you perform it personally, geek magic and things in terms of just sort of making people uncomfortable by doing things that are possible, but just really sort of, that's bad, don't do that.
Right.
You know? So, A, do you perform it? And B, how do you feel about that as a tactic for performance? And what is the value in putting your audience in that mindset?
I think for me, the biggest distinction, I do some what might be classified as geek magic, like the needles trick and stuff like that. That's more of a trick. I mean, the geek stuff commonly is like human blockhead, where most people just don't have the balls to stick a 6-inch needle or a 6-inch nail into their nose. They just don't.
Or eating glass.
Or something like that. They just don't get it and don't want to try it, and that's great. I think with a lot of geek magic performers, what they do really right is that they set it up like, this is a geek magic show. This is what my spiel is. It's not, I'm not going to be doing a bunch of card magic and then one shock value thing at the end. It's, you know, you should know what you're getting into. It's like watching the movie The Aristocrats, you know, like, you know what you're getting. You know that if you're offended by dirty jokes, that's not the movie
Not
you
the
should be
movie,
watching.
yeah. Right.
So it's a movie based on dirty jokes. Geek Magic is very similar. A lot of those guys, like the Jim Rose Circus show, will travel around and you know what you're getting. So, but with me, I try to do, I guess I'm just a bad example of what I just said not to do, but I try to close with that stuff so that the human element has been brought there. There's a bit of an emotional connection, and it's again not just some guy doing a shock value thing for like it's like, wow, I try to just add a message to what I'm doing and show people there's a reason for doing it.
And you feel like danger is what makes that impact? Because I find you
sometimes,
usually end
yeah.
I think there's super needs to be a message, like there needs to be, I guess not, but I think if you're just going to tie yourself up to get out of it, there should at least be something that people can take out of it. You know what I mean? Even if it's just reflecting on the experience of caring for somebody in that way.
Sure. Yeah.
Or like even anything like that, just reflecting on that emotion or even learning something about themselves in the future, anything like that. Like I think stunts like that should definitely have a reason.
Yeah, totally. And that's the other thing. And after, building a repertoire of a bunch of different stunts, I get emails all the time from young magicians and even old magicians around the world that are like, hey, I've seen that you've done a bunch of stuff. Here's what I'm thinking of doing. And my first question to them is always why? Like, what's the point? And if you don't have a good answer for that, you should not be doing it. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I will say about that, is that every stunt that I've ever done, I've gone into it thinking that I'm going to learn something very specific, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this stunt. This is what I'm going to learn about myself. And the message that comes out of it for me that I talk about in my speeches is something totally different than what I was expecting.
Probably something that evolves the process.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so much process driven. A lot of the stunts will take years of practice for a stunt that lasts less than 5 minutes, and then it's done and I never have to do it again because we videotaped it, and it's a one-time thing. It's something that it was either too dangerous or, again, you don't want to push the numbers on it. But
it's sort of like you have to overcome your fear, but you don't want to become too comfortable. I think that's an interesting...
Sure, yeah, definitely.
You want to look death in the face and not run away like once or twice. You know what I mean?
You want to get to the point where you are able to do it without hesitation. Hesitation is what's going to kill you when you're doing the really dangerous stuff. And it's also... Every stunt that I've ever done has required a lot of people behind the scenes, whether they're, flying with me in a skydive, manning the cameras, whatever it is. There are a lot of people that have put a lot of themselves into making sure that it's safe and visual and it's going to be duplicatable if we need to. And if you hesitate and they go, let's say on a skydive, let's say you're just about to jump and then you pull back at the last second and your crew jumps out of the plane expecting you to go with them, they've now got to do their whole skydive. You've got to now land with the plane. They've got to repack their chutes, and they're going to be second guessing the next time you do it. So you have to get to that point where you're ready to go, and you go. So, there are so many stunts. The bullet catch was a perfect example of, again, there was a personnel change with that pretty last minute because I did not trust the guy shooting the gun to not hesitate. And I just didn't trust him. And you have to go with your gut on that stuff because one person in the wrong position doing the wrong task at the wrong time has catastrophic impact or potential for catastrophic impact. Luckily, I haven't experienced that yet. That's why we're having this chat. But
what is it about that process that you find so rewarding? Like that sort of methodical rehearsal, meditative sort of experience. What do you take from it?
I think now that I've done a number of these things, now I love going into it thinking that I'm going to get something and learning something different about myself that I wasn't expecting to learn or didn't know I could learn. An example of that would be that I went into skydiving totally terrified. I literally started to skydive to overcome my fear of heights. And when I started training for the milk can, I was having some pretty heavy panic attacks when I was in the milk can. It's pitch black, you're underwater, your body wants to float, but there's nowhere for it to float. It sucks. But what I started to do was visualize skydiving. Because I got so comfortable with skydiving, I would use that as a visualization when I was in the can as a way to calm myself down. And I thought, this rules. Like, I used to be so scared of skydiving, I almost couldn't jump out of the plane. And now it's something that's so peaceful, I use it to calm myself in other stressful situations. I would have never thought that could happen especially with skydiving. So, like, just getting so far beyond the fear that it becomes something that calms you down later. When I'm attacking these new stunts, I'm thinking, okay, what's this going to do for me years down the road that I can't even fathom will happen now?
That's amazing that you're thinking about stunts in terms of what you're going to learn and not sort of how it's necessarily going to benefit you, like, promotion wise. It's like,
sure,
it's very like
it's not
I don't want to say selfish, but like, you could pick any stunt, you could do anything, but you're picking sort of whatever you're picking for a personal reason, to learn something out of it, and not to be like, yeah, like, people love airplanes, like, right, this will really get them, like.
And I think part of that is the fact that most of my work is speaking. I incorporate magic into all of my speeches, but people are there booking me for the message, not for my magic. Sure. Mm-hmm. And I think the other part of that is that I've recognized that I've done some crazy stunts, but my YouTube channel isn't blowing up. But the right people are seeing the videos. Right. I don't, like, my highest video by far only has like 37,000 hits or so. That's not that much. I jumped out of a plane blindfolded and handcuffed. Only maybe all of the versions on the internet, maybe 15,000 hits. But the right 15,000 people are seeing that, because those are the ones booking me for TV shows, TV series, documentary films, and speeches.
That was actually going to be my next question, is you have such a different sort of show, and you offer a different service, I guess, than the typical magician crowd that we've been interviewing so far. So what would you say your market is? How do you find an audience of people that want to hear your message and go on this journey with you?
The audience for me is kind of transforming a bit now. I'm breaking more into the corporate market now that I'm getting some gray in the beard. It was tough for corporations to justify bringing in a 21-year-old escape artist to talk to them about how they can fix their bottom line. Now that I've got, over a decade of experience and more stunts to draw on, more leadership stuff, and I get the corporate world a little more, it's doing that. But right now my main market is high schools and university age audiences, and it's about, there are a number of things that I talk about, but mostly it boils down to find your passion, make it happen. Whether that's with leadership, whether that's with your career, whether that's with, global, local service, bettering your community. Use what you're passionate about, and here are the tools to help make it work for you. Mm-hmm. So, I travel literally around the world. I've done conferences all over the world, Southeast Asia, Africa, the Middle East, all over North America. But most of the market is a young market. They like watching the video of the stunt and then learning about all that goes in behind it, what I learned from that experience, and how that can be applied to whatever they're doing. Because they're probably not juggling live explosives or, jumping out of planes blindfolded and handcuffed. But what are the lessons that I've learned that they're like, oh, you know what, I never thought about this that way. And although it's not as extreme, that can be boiled down. If he can make it work for that scenario, mm-hmm. I can make it work for studying for this test, or, focusing on this sporting event, or whatever it may be.
Whatever
for that
passion is, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have I don't know if this is something you want to talk about or not. We can edit this out if it isn't. But you have a tattoo that says "breathe," right? And that's sort of, I think you were explaining to me last time that's where that stems from, right?
Yeah, one of my main philosophies is about getting paid to breathe. So doing whatever comes naturally, figuring out a way to make a living at it. And so, paid to breathe is something that kind of stuck with me. And what's great about it is that it's a philosophy, for me at least, that is ever changing. You know, for many years I ran a hypnosis business, and not only doing hypnotherapy but stage hypnosis, and started losing a bit of interest in that. Those skills certainly help my performance craft and some of the corporate market stuff that I'm talking about now, but I wanted to kind of venture out of that and a little more into TV and film. And right now that's kind of where my head's at, but it's starting to weave back into the, focus-driven speaking and the corporate speeches and that side of things. The speaking is kind of always an underlying thing for me. I'm always passionate about that, but the payment of it kind of comes in waves and goes wherever I want it to go, wherever I'm happy about.
Well, that's awesome that you can do what you want and get paid for it, but they can also be indirect enough. You know what I mean? Like you can be doing stunts but not worrying in your stunt about your audience, but you're still, you're building your audience with the material from your stunts.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Sort of that distance between those two things gives you a little more leeway to do whatever it is that you want.
Sure. And sometimes it's doing things that people won't notice, but it helps your credibility. Like I've done a bunch of body double work for films and movies and stuff where people don't know that those are my hands shuffling the cards, or it's me filmed from the back in a wig juggling or whatever.
Right.
But like in terms of learning, going to set, doing that stuff and seeing how it works, so then when I'm on
You're
a production
and you really understand.
Yeah, exactly. And it's stuff that's going to help me, or just being able to attach myself to certain projects that people recognize, and it's easy for them to be like, oh, he's done this, and this, but he's also able to do this, and this. You get hired on as like a consulting role, and it's something totally hands off, and your job is to help somebody else figure it out or do it, and I'm totally fine with that. It's kind of ever changing, and your skill sets kind of come in, and stuff that you learned when you were 12 juggling comes in handy when you're consulting on a film about something totally unrelated, and it's just interesting how that stuff happens. But when you're open to it, you're never blocked off and saying like, oh, that's not my job description. You're just open to, I'm there for the project. The project is the goal. So
it's good to be like completely encompassed in a project and not worry about. I always talk about that. Like I say that if you're helping with something, then you can just help to the full extent of what you're able to do, and however much someone needs you along, and however much they don't, then you just do whatever, you know what I mean, as much as you can, and putting in that much work pays off. I have a question based on something you said. You mentioned that being in that milk can with the water up to your head, no ability to escape, sucks. I understand, juggling a Roman candle, you've done it, jumping out of a plane to do stuff, like, maybe an accomplishment, a feat. Why would you do something that sucks? Why would you do it multiple times?
Again, I originally hated skydiving, and I pushed through it until it was comfortable, and now I do it as a hobby. I own my own parachute, and on beautiful days, I love nothing more than driving to the drop zone and jumping out, taking friends to experience it for the first time. And I've got some friends now that are thinking about getting their skydive licenses and buying a rig and going up as well.
Let's go.
Yeah, and honestly, anytime that you guys want, I would love to take you. With the milk can, I can see that there would be that. I haven't reached it yet, but I could see that there would be that end line where eventually I'm learning something about it that can be transformed. But sometimes it's also about the groups of people that are helping train me to get me into the milk can that I love so much. So the milk can is a great example. I had never thought to interact with scuba divers and free divers, but in order to learn to hold my breath for a really long time, I would go every Monday. There's a big Olympic-sized swimming pool in Etobicoke, and the scuba divers go to the bottom and the free divers do exercises on the top. Tons of great people. When I was learning to skydive, skydiving sucked, but the people were so much fun that it would get me back to the drop zone, and eventually I would get comfortable with it. when I was training for the bullet catch. I would have never thought I would have anything in common with the guys at the gun range. I thought I had a specific notion in my head that these are going to be redneck dudes and I'm not going to have any relation to them aside from the fact that I want to learn to safely shoot a gun and these are the guys to teach me. Now I'm friends with these guys and like we'll hang out, not at the shooting range, not at the, not when we're talking about guns. We'll just hang. And I had a preconceived notion of what these guys would be. It was totally blasted. And sometimes that will get me through the shitty parts of the milk can escape, because I know that I'd be letting down these guys if I don't do it well.
Yeah, it's sort of not just even letting them down. I think that's rewarding enough for it. You know what I mean? It's just like it's worth putting yourself in there just to have to connect with people on such a serious level, because there's so much on the line. You can't just sort of haphazardly communicate. Like you really need to understand each other and communicate very clearly, right?
Yeah, and I think another element of it too is the whole underdog thing. When you're in a really uncomfortable situation, have you guys ever seen someone do a milk can escape?
Not live.
I've seen your video and that's it.
Okay, so I first saw Dean Gunnarsson do it. He's an escape artist, I think from Winnipeg. I first saw him do it at an Amazing Randy dinner, the Canadian Association of Magicians conference in Kitchener years ago. And seeing, even though you might know how the trick's done and you might know that it's a trick, but seeing a human being doing something like that is really crazy. And I've wanted to recreate that in my shows or have that ability. And just having, you sometimes have to suck, like it's like working on a memorized deck. It sucks for the process of like, learning it and having to go over it. The result is what's killer. And you'll have people come up to you after the show and it'll be some of the strongest feedback you've ever had or some of the most intense audience experiences that you can tell.
You saw someone do it and then you went out and did it.
Right.
So you could be that person
right.
for
You
future
can also like
magicians.
earn
absolutely
really honest feedback. It's different than when someone's like, hey, great show, dude. And then when someone's like, moved by having watched you risk your life for them, and you could get something that the feedback that comes from like maybe a deeper place, like, not feedback about like the performance, maybe about like a specific tweak in the message or something, whatever it is that really like honed in for them.
And I'll sometimes get that months or years later where I'll forget about something that I did and I'll get an email a couple years later from a kid that saw me hang upside down from a crane and like, I don't know if you remember, but I watched you do this stunt and, that changed my career path and decided to pursue what I'm into, which is music or video game design. But like, I remember watching that thinking like, wow, if he's doing that, I should be pushing myself. And it's something that I haven't thought about that crane escape, but that's in that city for years. But a few years later this kid's graduated from a prestigious school and they're on their way to something great, and they send you this really heartwarming email and you're just like, whoa, yeah, like you forget as a performer those little I'm sure you guys have it too where 5-10 years later people are like, I still carry your business card around or that card that you had me sign. I still have it pinned to my wall.
I did swallowing the thread and pulling it out of your eye when I was in grade 8, and a friend of mine like years ago said he still has a disgusting old piece of string that was in my eye in a like plastic piece of what was an old agenda.
Yeah,
so weird.
Wow,
people hold on to that stuff, and when you can really connect with them on a powerful level with a powerful, dangerous or just crazy piece, I don't know, I've really enjoyed it. Although it gets to the point where thinking forward, like I still kind of want to get this stuff out of my system before I have kids, because will I do some of this stuff when I have a family that's relying on me? Probably not. My goal is to kind of do enough crazy stuff, build up my body of work. It's all filmed, it's all captured, and I can talk about it for the rest of my career. It's not that I'm retired, it's just that I've proven myself and I don't need to do that stuff. Here's what I did, here's what I learned, here's what you can take away.
So what should somebody, usually at the end of a stunt, the stuntman says, kids, don't try this at home. But I think that if there are any kids that are going to end up trying any stunts at home, it's probably going to be the magician or stunt kids that are listening to this right now. So if somebody decides to not heed that advice and warning and still wants to continue, there isn't really that many places to get information about how to conduct stunts, because everyone's take on it is, I'm doing this, but definitely you shouldn't be doing this because this is crazy.
I think a lot of the old classic magic books on stunts are not a good place to start, because they tell you to do things that are simply not safe.
There's a book that Houdini wrote about, the guys that did like the metal, like molten metal swallowing and shit like that, and it's like, first you eat all these chemicals and that should protect you in most scenarios. You're like, what?
Yeah.
That's the method? Are you kidding?
I have a book called Chemistry Magic or something like that. Magic with Chemistry. And it's like, here's how to make your own flash paper, and here's how to make explosives that when people walk on stage, smoke will come out everywhere. And it's just like, first boil sulfur. It's like, no, I can't.
Ben Train talked about that, how he was like accidentally making mustard gas in his backyard because he was trying to create like a smoke effect, and he just went to this chemical place and bought chemicals that like, that's what mustard gas is. They didn't ask, like, what are you using this for? And he's in the backyard and he's like, I started feeling nauseous, and I was like, wow, I'm mixing chemicals. I should probably set this down. And I'm thinking, Ben, like, you're nuts. But yeah, my advice would be, to get back to the question, my advice for young people wanting to actually do it, or old people wanting to do it, would firstly be train with the best experts that you possibly can. If I'm doing a skydiving stunt, I moved to California so I could train with world champion skydivers. At first, for the first few weeks of training, they didn't know what my end goal was, but I became friends with them and the trust was there, and then they started, oh, so what is it that you do? And then they'd come back the next day and be like, wow, I checked out some of your videos. You're good at what you do, or you've done some big stuff. Mm-hmm. With the freediving, like world champion freedivers that are going to teach you their techniques that you can then apply to whatever it is.
That is so much scarier than skydiving to me. Freediving is like the craziest hobby anyone could have in my mind.
For sure. Well, and there are different disciplines, certainly. Like some of it can be really safe, but the guys that just go down as far as they can on one breath, like that stuff is. There have been a lot of people that have died doing that.
Yeah. Did you hear David Blaine's story, or he passed out trying to show off that he can hold his breath to like book a gig? He just totally passed out in the water and had to be saved.
Totally. And that stuff happens there are a lot of experiences that I don't talk about. Yeah, and then again the numbers add up. The other thing that I would make sure a lot of people don't understand, if the goal is publicity or like a cool video, you have to capture it properly. When I was doing the Roman Cascade, the version where I burned my hand off, I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to save a whack of money and I'm going to have a bunch of my friends film it on their cell phone cameras, and I want it kind of a guerrilla style. We just roll to this park, set up, do this crazy thing, and leave. What I didn't realize is how difficult it is to properly edit that type of footage. What you need to do is film it with the professional crew. Absolutely. And have them make it look like it's guerrilla style, but on their good cameras, with camera operators that know how to work their camera, how to frame a shot, and do it. It's so worth paying for that stuff. Even just a juggling video I did in the alley behind my house cost me $5,500. I rented a Steadicam. I had a phantom camera that was captured. Spend the money so that if it's something that you only need to do once, you only have to do it once, because the people that you've hired to capture it know what the hell they're doing. Mm-hmm. So
definitely spend the money on the training. On picking the top people, like, it might cost you to do that, but that's definitely really critical.
Sure, yeah.
And then spend the money on the tech crew.
Yeah.
Because you definitely don't want to have to do it any other time. Any other...
And just, what I'll try to do with all of my stunts is tell as many people as possible what I'm doing, especially friends of mine that think what I'm doing is stupid, because they're the ones that are going to poke holes in it where you're like, yeah, heard that, here's, never thought about that. And they're going to be giving you ideas and scenarios that you never thought possible. With some of the skydiving stuff, we had sit downs with groups of skydivers, every possible scenario. Okay, if the weather gets to be this point, we call it off automatically. Even if all the other conditions are perfect, this one condition overrides everything because that's where accidents have happened in the past. If this happens and this happens, this is our contingency plan. And you're basically making, spreadsheets and rundowns of the possible scenarios that could go wrong and what's going to be your limit. Because when you're in those situations and things start going wrong, everybody needs to know what point you're backing out, and you're going to want to keep going and push through. But if you've set a limit and you reach that limit, it's not just for the safety of you, it's for the safety of your team.
It's almost like gambling, where it's like in the moment you might really want to push that limit that you might have set for yourself, but like you can't, because that's why you set the limit in the first place.
Sure. And you set it in a stable, rational frame of mind, and now you're not in one. I don't care what anybody says, you think differently. Sometimes it's a heightened sense that is going to help you do what you need to do. Like you get tunnel vision. Your mind shuts out everything that is not critical to what you're doing. And that's a safety mechanism that's going to help you. But your critical thinking down the road, it's going to be affected by that.
Yeah. Also, it can also turn into a panic. Like you can become frantic when you're in a stressful situation too, right? It's not always. Yeah. You don't always zone in on the right tasks. So you need to be prepared.
When you and everybody on your team knows exactly what to do in those scenarios, that's when they're going to click in and do what they need to do just to neutralize the situation. You don't have to finish the stunt. You just have to get to a point where you can actually stop. And that sometimes is all you need, because then you can, reload the cameras, reload the crew, and then do it. But if you haven't set that stuff up, oh man, there have been scenarios where I've gotten to that point, thought, I'm going to push through. And then when you step back and analyze it, you're like, wow, I'm really glad I didn't do that, because people get hurt doing this normally without the added element of doing it blindfolded or doing it underwater or whatever. It can be a dangerous thing to begin with, but we always want to push the limits. The other thing that I would say is you don't have to be the best at it, but do it differently than everybody else has done it. Some of the things that I've done, I recognize that I'm not a very good juggler. I'm not a very good escape artist. I'm not a very good magician. But I've done things in a different enough way that people buy into it and want to watch it. And that's sometimes all you need to do. Some of the coolest viral videos aren't the best sleight of hand. It's just that magician's thought of something in a way that you're like, damn, why didn't I think of that? That was right in front of me and super cool. And do something cool with your production style. Doesn't have to be the stunt. You can make the production more exciting than the trick itself.
Awesome. I think that's really good. So we're going to wrap up. One way that we wrap up usually is we each touch on one of the things that we sort of took out of the conversation, or maybe things to move forward about either stunts or about, putting together a message, or, covering your basis, or, like hiring the best people for the job. So for me, at least, one thing that I learned is about how easy it can be and how beneficial it can be to hire the best people for the job to do what it is that you need to do. You end up having to only do it once, and you get sort of the best product. And that seems obvious, but I know that, have you ever heard of Tim Ferriss?
Yeah, I heard the name.
So Tim Ferriss talks about the path to learning things very quickly. And he always says, like, if you want to learn how, like, a gold medalist does something, he says, just contact the silver medalist, because he's just as good. He's probably going to be way easier to contact. And I mean, you can do this as top-level training,
sure,
and you can get it from top-level people. And, I mean, it's going to cost you, but you can find ways for it to cost you less while you're still getting the top-level training. And the point is that getting training of that quality, or getting help from people of that quality, cuts that learning time down a lot. And in this situation, especially in the situation of stunts, will allow you to only do it once. You know, if it's something that you really only want to do one time, that you do not have to do it anymore. Do you have any other final thoughts, Tyler?
I do have some final thoughts, and I actually have one final sort of series of questions.
Sure.
Anyway, my final thoughts are, I think it's sort of cool how this is sort of an ongoing conversation with all our guests, because it ties into everything we've talked about so far in previous episodes, but going off of this whole idea of finding your passion and finding a way to make money and have it work so you can live a life doing what you love to do and would be doing naturally, is not something we've necessarily heard before, because magic has always just been that thing, right? But you're sort of merging two viewpoints where people like Westfall and Mayhew were saying, like, you need to go with the flow and do what's given to you, right? Work with what you have, but you sort of are working with what you have directly to achieve specifically what you want, right? Which I think is an even better goal than just being able to take whatever comes your way.
Sort of like proactivity versus reactivity.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like for me, I'm all about creating. When opportunity's not presented, you create the opportunity for yourself. And I wouldn't have a speaking career if it wasn't for that mentality. And the more I do it, the more it's reinforced.
And we wouldn't be here recording this if we didn't think that we wanted to start this this fun project.
Yes.
So we definitely resonate with setting up a dream and then
Totally.
through
Right before we get to your final thoughts on the episode, I just want to know if you have any sort of horror stories in terms of your practice.
Yes.
a good thing I think that we didn't mention was not practicing alone, right? Like having someone to help you if you need it when you're practicing these things. 'Cause I know I've gotten in trouble by myself being home alone in handcuffs for a little bit too long, right? But so yeah, I'm sure you have some very over the top.
Yeah, well, one of the scariest was definitely when I was filming the promo videos for my milk can escape. I didn't have a huge budget for that promo, so we ended up filming it in my basement of the apartment that I was living in, and made it look pretty good. We blacked out the walls and stuff, and you can't really tell that I'm in a basement, I don't think, anyways. And I remember there was one scene where I was going under, and the director was like, all right, I want you to hold your hands like this so that there's a big splash over and it's really dramatic. We're going to film it in a high-speed camera so we can slow it down and it'll look great. And I was thinking, okay, I've never done it this way, but all right. And so the shot was just me going underwater, lid put on, and there are 6 locks to lock the lid on. So I go under, put my arms up instead of down, go under the way he wants, and lid goes on, lock, 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 lock. And then I hear cut, and there's nobody starting to open the locks, and I'm thinking, well, I went down, and I didn't think about how I was going to need to change the way my breath is held. Oh, no. So I went down, and I did not have the right type of breath because I normally do a very specific series of things.
I'm sure.
And so I'm underwater, and I hear all the locks go on, and no one is doing anything, and I started to panic, and I put my head up to the top. There's a little dome at the top where you can snag a breath if you need it. But what I forgot, and in panic mode you forget these things, is that you have to put your lips on the top of the milk can and then wait for the water to settle before you can take that breath. I just put my mouth up and start inhaling, and the water from me going up was swaying. I got a half a breath in before the water swayed back and filled my lungs with water. So now I'm in this can, filled my lungs with water, and I can hear that they're not there. So I start banging on the side of the milk can to be like, this, I need out, like, right now. And the guy that was filming it as my assistant in the video, he wasn't my normal guy. I couldn't get him because he was booked that day. And so this guy hears the banging, starts to panic, drops the keys on the floor. Well, now he doesn't know which key goes with which lock, and he's, he can hear me banging, banging, and because my lungs are full, I can't just go to the top, wait, and take another breath. I'm
You're
drowning.
legitimately drowning.
Yeah,
yes.
so that was the worst. And what I got from that was
And
that,
how did it turn out?
eventually I got out. It was really heavy at the time, and people wanted to, they were like, we've got enough, we're just going to use this. And I just needed some time, and I was like, okay, this is why I can't be doing stuff that I've never done on camera.
With people that I have.
With people that I haven't been training with. They don't know the series of steps because I was like, oh, well, I don't need my normal guy, we're just filming a video, so we're just going to do like the lid locking, that's one shot, take the lid off, the breath hold, that's another, like that's the beauty of production. But like with this, I was talked into something that I didn't know how to do it properly, and that happens all the time. David Blaine has a great story when he was performing on Oprah. They were like, oh, we want to make it more visual, so can you do this standing up? When he was holding his breath to try to break the world record for longest breath hold. He's like, yeah, I guess. And he thought he was having a heart attack because he's used to, laying down, and now his body's in a different position. He doesn't know the sensations and how things are changing. So people will always try to, oh, can you do it once this way? No, I can't. And
this is what I do.
This is what I do. This is how I do it. I know what I can deviate from a little bit, but that's not something I'm willing to work with. And you don't want to be the guy that's a dick, but you want to walk out at the end of the day with your life. So
yeah.
And do you have any final advice or words or thoughts or any things you learned or came out with from this?
Any upcoming projects you want to plug? Anything like that?
I mean, we were talking earlier about the importance of kind of having a message and a reason for doing it. Coming up this summer, I'm going to be doing a Buried Alive stunt. And I'm going to be buried under 6 feet of dirty water. And every time someone donates money to give someone overseas access to clean drinking water, we're going to take a scoop of the dirty water out and purify it. So the idea is that if enough people donate and get involved, we'll not only raise like $75,000 for clean water projects internationally, but I'm kind of unburied alive. So It's a socially conscious twist on a very old stunt that's been done for thousands of years.
It's similar to your food drive. Being boxed in with the dry goods.
So just trying to again create a very strong message, a very strong image of the number of kids that are dying before their 5th birthday because of waterborne illness is staggering. So you've got the imagery of the buried under 6 feet. So
it impacts on so many levels because it makes them think about a serious issue. It actually contributes to that issue. It has a visual element. It affects them with an emotional sort of danger feeling element. It's very, very interesting.
Is there a place that people can check you out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, anything?
My current website's scotthammell.com. It'll have information there, and I'm sure it'll be on the homepage because it's something I believe in and really want to plug. So, prominent downtown location, which I can't disclose yet because we don't have the contracts, but hopefully you'll hear about it.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, and we will see all of you on the next episode of Discourse in Magic.
Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 19 of Discourse in Magic. We had an absolute hoot recording this with Scott Hammell, and the moment that you are listening to this, or at least the moment that it comes out, we will be up at Sorcerer Safari Magic Camp doing magic with Scott Hammell and with a whole bunch of other incredible
A good old
magicians.
blasty blast.
Yeah, and if you want to see what's going on, we'll be posting quite a bit about that on our Twitter and Facebook page. Speaking of Twitter... we are having a super fun contest, and it's basically the easiest contest in the world. All you have to do is tweet at us at Magic Discourse and tell us what you like about what we're doing or what you don't like. We're looking for some honest feedback. We want to know what you want more of, what you want less of, and
wow,
we just gotta
that
hear
sounds
from you.
like it would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be.
What are we going to give them for being such helpful, active participators?
Great question. The answer is a copy of Blackmail by Bobby Mata. It is an absolutely incredible tool that I love, that I use all the time, and it has helped me get out of a bunch of pickles, and that is true. So it's a really cool tool, and we're giving out a couple of them. Very, very easy. All you have to do is send us anything on Twitter and tell us either what you like or what you don't like, and you will be entered to win a copy. and that is very, 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 very cool. And of course, if you like the episode, please share it, like it, post it, upvote it, double tap it, shake it, jump it, fix it, name it, bop it, pop it, lock it, polka dot it, everything. Technologic. Everything that you can to help spread the word about this. We are 19 episodes in, and we love the community that we have so far. So big thank you for all you guys who have been sharing and liking and all that good stuff. And other than that, we will see you all in our very exciting episode 20.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Take care, everybody. Later.